Hey there, everybody. So what is Psalm 90 all about? Well, I preached a sermon on it about a year ago, and it's something that today is very vital. So teach us to number our days that we may apply our hearts to wisdom. And so I want to give that sermon out to you. I want to share it with you. I hope it's a blessing and a challenge. And I hope each of us make the decision this year to use every moment wisely. And so I hope that's a blessing to you. The video is going to come up in just a second, but before we do, I just want to let you know that we will be having our very first lesson in Everything Church Pro University about how to begin loving Bible study and making it a regular habit. We'll do that tomorrow if you're watching this today at noon. And so if you want to jump in, there's still time to jump in before we close down and start up. Okay, so just want to give you that heads up, but I hope you enjoy this sermon, and I will talk to you guys later.
This has been one of those Psalms that has really smacked me upside the head, okay? This is one, I was on cruise control, I was on autopilot, and then God brought this Psalm to my attention, and it's one of those Psalms that just kind of arrested my attention and helped me to realize that this life is passing us by. It's moving by very quickly. And so I pray that this will be a blessing to us. And I said this, I don't know if the mic was on or off. I don't plan on being incredibly long today, but I pray that this is a challenge to us and a blessing as it's been a challenge and a blessing to me. And we'll begin in verse number 1. It says this, Lord, Thou hast been our dwelling place in all generations. Before the mountains were brought forth, or ever Thou hadst formed the earth and the world, even from everlasting to everlasting, Thou art God. Amen. Thou turnest man to destruction, and sayest, Return, ye children of men. For 1,000 years in Thy sight are but as yesterday when it is past, and as a watch in the night. Thou carriest them away as with a flood. They are as a sleep. In the morning they are like grass which groweth up. In the morning it flourisheth and groweth up, and in the evening it is cut down and withereth. For we are consumed by Thine anger, and by Thy wrath we are troubled. Thou hast set our iniquities before Thee, our secret sins in the light of Thy countenance. For all our days are passed away in Thy wrath. We spend our years as a tale that is told. The days of our years are 80 years and 10, and if by reason of strength they be 80 years, yet is their strength labor and sorrow, for it is soon cut off, and we fly away. Who knoweth the power of Thine anger? Even according to Thy fear, so is Thy wrath. And look at verse number 12, it says this, So teach us to number our days. Why? That we may apply our hearts unto wisdom. Let's pray this evening. Dear Father, Lord, I thank You so much for today. God, I thank You for such an amazing church family, Lord, a church home base that we can return to, and Lord, be rejuvenated and be recharged. And God, I pray as we come to Your word today that it would be nothing about me, nothing about my thoughts, but Lord, that we would all come around Your word. And Lord, I pray that we would see what You would want us to see, Lord, and we would hear Your thoughts, which are infinitely higher than our own. And God, I pray today, if there's someone in here like me who's been on cruise control, who's been on autopilot, God, I pray as we examine Your word tonight that we would realize that our life is flying by. And God, I ask that You would just give me the right words and the wisdom to use them. And I ask this in Jesus' name. Amen. I bet you all of us in this room have heard the phrase, life's... Anybody know what the next word is? I say that and I get different responses. Life's crazy. I don't know what your life is like. But I've heard this phrase over and over again. And especially now that I have little children, I hear this over and over and over and over and over again. Everybody wants to tell me this, and it is true. Life's short. Life's short. There was a quote by a man, and he said this, the tragedy of life is not that it ends so soon, but that we wait so long to begin it. I want to read it one more time. It says this, the tragedy of life is not that it ends so soon, but that we wait so long to begin it. And that is the story of Psalm 90, verse 12. So teach us to number our days. Why? That we may apply our hearts unto wisdom. And I guess the question tonight for all of us that we need to consider is this: how are we spending our days? How are we spending our hours, our minutes, our moments? Because some of us, it's amazing how easy it is to be caught up and just be swept away. We just let life just kind of happen to us. And we just think that life's always going to be around, it's always going to be there, but we all know that we'll blink and it will be gone. Did you know, I don't know if I have longer to live than you do. I know many of you are older than I am, but can I tell you, I don't know if I have tomorrow. I don't know if I have 3 months. You might have 20 years and I might have 20 days. The thing is, we have no idea how much time we have left. We have no idea how much longer we have to live. Our life is a vapor. It is so short, and our life just flows by. You see, the only 20s that we have will soon be past. The only 30s that we have will soon be past. The only 40s, the only 50s, the only 60s, and I can keep on going. These are the only times that you will have today. And it's amazing how easy it is to look back and say, man, I wish I could go back to my teenage years, or I wish I could go back to my 20s. If I could go back, I would do this differently, and I might do that differently. But the thing is, we can't go back. But the thing is, we have today. We have now. And so the question is, are we investing our moments, or are we wasting them? Are we investing them, or are we wasting them? There was a famous book out there. It was called Rich Dad, Poor Dad. And basically the premise of this book was that rich people invest their money while poor people waste their money. Rich people invest it while poor people spend it. So basically, a poor person will go out and spend their money on the clothes and on the boats and on the cars and on all of these different things that lose value. But a rich person would go out there and they would spend their money on building businesses, on reading books, on retirement funds, all while still wearing old clothes, all while still having a smaller house, all while still having an old 2003 Jetta, because they knew that these things lose value, but they need to take what they have and invest it into things that will gain value. You see, the rich know where to invest, whereas the poor just spend. And the same thing is true with our life. You see, many of us, we just waste the currency of our life. We just go through life saying, man, I'm just going to do this because it's fun. I'm just going to go here because I enjoy it. I'm just going to spend my time doing this or doing that. Man, I don't know what your big time suck is. I don't know what it is that you waste your time on. I know for the younger generation, they're on Facebook and they're on Instagram all the time. But maybe for you, your big time waster is you watch the news like 24/7. I don't know what your big time waster is. Maybe you enjoy doing things that really aren't beneficial. And can I tell you, diversion is not a sin. It's not a sin to occasionally do fun things and occasionally just spend time rejuvenating ourselves. But can I tell you, if we're just letting life fly by, we're missing amazing opportunities. And if there is one thing that this psalm is trying to teach us, it's this: don't live for this world. Don't live for pleasure. Don't live for prestige or riches, because it's a waste. We have to invest our time into eternity. So I want to ask you, this is a Wednesday night, I don't know if I would usually do this in preaching. What's the difference between investing and spending? What's the difference between investing and spending? Does somebody want to venture a guess? You know, I know it's just going to be like, we don't usually talk about things in service. You usually just do it, man. All right. That's it. You see, when you invest, you receive an asset that gives you a return. It makes money. But when you spend, you don't. The way that I like to look at it is a McDouble, is that an investment? The only return you'll get, I'm not even going to go there. It's not a good return, but I'll tell you that. But you know, I'm not going to invest I am going to get fired so fast. He's like, man, why did I go to Israel? But you know, you buy that McDouble, right? And I spend that $1 and whatever cents on that McDouble. But can I tell you, that is not going to increase in value. I can hold on to it for years, and I might win a Guinness World Book of Records for how much fungi is on a single piece of bread. But can I tell you, that is not going to increase in value the longer I hold on to it. In fact, if I just had that one McDouble for like 5 minutes, it's probably almost worthless. I can probably not sell it to like anybody else. It's going down in value incredibly fast. But if I were to take a brick of gold the same size of the McDouble, oh my goodness. Every moment that I hold on to that, every moment that I have that brick of gold, it continues to increase in value. And this is what we're supposed to do with our life. Some of us, we are spending our moments on a bunch of McDoubles. You know what I mean? When we could be using the moments that we have, the hours that we have, the days that we have, investing into things that last. You see, the reason gold is much more valuable than a McDouble is because it lasts. The McDouble comes and goes, but that gold stays the same. And so, will we invest every moment that we have left in eternity? And today I want us to look at 3 incredible truths that hold the secret to getting the most out of life. And it's straight from this passage. The first truth is this: God is eternal. God is eternal. Let's read verses 1 through 4. It says this: Lord, thou hast been our dwelling place in all generations. Before the mountains were brought forth, or ever thou hadst formed the earth and the world, even from everlasting to everlasting, thou art God. From everlasting to everlasting. He says, thou turnest man to destruction and sayest, return ye children of men. For 1,000 years in thy sight are but as yesterday, when it is past as a watch in the night. You see, as we come to this psalm, we have to realize that this psalm was written by Moses. When I was first reading psalms, I thought they were all written by David. I know many of you are much smarter than I am, but I used to think that every psalm was written by David. I did not know that Moses had a psalm in the Bible. And this is the first psalm in book number 4 of the book of Psalms. And the book number 4 of Psalms corresponds to the book of Numbers. It corresponds to the wilderness wanderings. And when we look at Psalm number 90, we have to think, what's going on while this is happening? When Moses is penning this, what's going through his mind? What is he experiencing? Because that will help us really dig in to this text. This happened during the wilderness wanderings. If you don't know much about the wilderness wanderings, let me just paint you a little picture. They had just been delivered from Egypt, and they had come up to the Jordan River, excited to enter into the land that God had promised them, the land of fulfillment, the land of abundance. And yet they sent in those 12 people, and like that children's song says, 10 were bad and 2 were good, right? They had those 10 knuckleheads. Am I allowed to say that? Some of you are going, oh no. We had those 10 people who were foolish. They relied on what they could see. They relied on their own strength. And they said, no, God's not strong enough. There's no way we could go in there. There's no way we could overcome. Do you know they have walled cities? Do you know they have giants there? This is just not a possibility. And because of the unbelief of 10 people, the entire nation was doomed to wander for 38 more years, so that everybody 20 and older would die, wasting their life, walking around from point A to point B to point C, back to point A to point B to point C. And this is what Moses is going through when he pens Psalm 90. He's there with these children of Israel, and they're just wasting their life. They're just wandering from here to there to here. And Moses is hearing him gripe about water and wanting to go back to Egypt. And he's just fed up with all of this stuff that's going on. And he realizes, God, I have 40 years of my life that are literally going to be wasted. I have 40 years of my life that is just going to be walking around, doing nothing important, not making a difference, not making an impact. And God, I feel like there's no purpose going on here. And so he begins this psalm by saying, God, you are our dwelling place. Now, why is that significant? Think about this. They have no dwelling place. They have no home. When I think about home, I think of somewhere nice and warm, somewhere secure. You know, no matter what's going on outside those 4 walls, I can come back home and be safe. No matter what's going on at work, no matter what's going on with different things, I can come home and there is this safe place. There is this constant. Even though everything outside of me, outside of those four walls might be changing and turbulent, when I get in those four walls, there's this security. And this is what Moses is saying. God, I'm wandering from place to place to place. I'm literally wasting every moment of my life walking from here to there to there. But God, even though there's nothing constant in my life, you are constant. God, you are my dwelling place. I don't think this is new to anybody. But can I tell you, in life, we're going to see a lot of change. You know, there's differences in this phase of my life than there were in the last phase. And there's differences in this phase of your life and in the next phase, things that you don't anticipate, things that you never saw coming. You know, when we first got married, I was in an apartment, and we moved from that apartment to another apartment to a we're moving all over the place. And in just a few years, got 3 kids. Man, that's a big change. And for some of you, it might be a job situation that changes, and you didn't even see it coming. It might be a health situation. It changes, and you had no idea. You thought you were going to be healthy forever. And then boom, it changes. And what's going on in this passage is God saying, or Moses is saying, God, even though everything on the outside is changing, even though I don't have a place where I can put down roots, God, the place I can put down roots is in you. And I don't know what's going on in your life. I have no idea what changes are happening. And I don't know what changes are going to happen. I don't know what happens to you tomorrow. I don't know what happens to you next week. I don't know what goes on in your job or in your family in the next years. But can I tell you, no matter what goes on in the changing world, we have a place where we can dwell, a place where we can put down roots, and that is God. We can have rest because God is our dwelling place. He's eternal. He never changes. It's amazing. We can watch the news and we can get discouraged because of all the change. And it seems like it can change at any minute. Things can just fall apart at any second. And we can feel that angst in our spirit. But can I tell you this? When we put our rest in God, it doesn't matter what happens in the White House. I hope it goes well. But I can still have that peace of being at home, which I love. No matter if we were to lose our homes tomorrow, we can have that peace because we have roots in something that will never change and that will never fade and will never go away. The first truth we have to realize is this, that God is eternal. And just like that McDouble and that brick of gold, the wisest investment is in the thing that lasts. And if God is eternal, wouldn't it be the wisest use of our time to live for the things that last? And this is what he's trying to pull out. We're going to see him contrast this with our next point. You see, first, God is eternal, and so we should live for him. But the second truth that he begins to pull out is this: time ends quickly. Time ends quickly. Look with me at verse number 4 through verse 12. He says this: For 1,000 years in thy sight are but as yesterday when it is past, and as a watch in the night. Thou carriest them away as with a flood. They are as sleep. In the morning they are like the grass which groweth up. In the morning it flourisheth and groweth up. In the evening it is cut down and withereth. For we are consumed by thine anger, and by thy wrath we are troubled. Thou hast set our iniquities before thee, our secret sins in the light of thy countenance. For all our days are passed away in thy wrath. We spend our years as a tale that is told. The days of our years are 80 years. And if by reason of strength they be 80 or 80 years, yet is their strength labor and sorrow. Because look, for it is soon cut off and we fly away. In verse 12, so teach us to number our days, that we may apply our hearts unto wisdom. You see, verses 4 through 6, they try to help us see just how short our lives really are, just how small time really is. And it goes by trying to describe 1,000 years. And it says, friends, 1,000 years is so short. 1,000 years is like yesterday when it's already gone. I don't know about you, but that's pretty short. I don't make appointments for yesterday unless I don't want to see the person. You don't make appointments for it because it's gone. It's so small. And this is what God is saying. This is what Moses is saying. That 1,000 years in God's sight is like yesterday. It's already passed. That quick, it's already gone. He says not only that, it's like a watch in the night. A watch in the night for them was like 4 hours. He says what we think is so long, 1,000 years, America hasn't even been around for 1,000 years, not even close to 1,000 years. And when we think this huge history, we look back to, like Abraham Lincoln, we think that was forever ago. We look back to George Washington, we say, man, that was ancient. That wasn't even close to 1,000 years. And yet God is saying 1,000 years is like 4 hours. To me, a watch in the night. He says they move like the flood. He says they are like sleep. And if you're like most people, sleep feels timeless. You lay yourself down, the alarm goes off. And he says, that's what 1,000 years are like to me. It's just gone. It's just gone so quickly. 1,000 years, you think it lasts forever. You think it goes on forever. But 1,000 years for me, just quick. He says they're like grass on harvest day. In the morning, everything looks good. He says in the morning, they spring up, they're green, everything's good. But it says in the evening, chop down and wither. That shows the unexpectedness of how short it is. We wake up one morning and we think, man, I'm going to live forever. Everything's going well. And we have no idea that by the end of that night, our lives could be gone. He says they're like the grass. In the morning, everything springs up and it's good. But it's soon cut down and withers. Time doesn't last. And you see here, he's painting a portrait. He's comparing two things. He just showed us, man, God, you're our dwelling place. You've been here long before the mountains. You've been here long before mankind. God, you exist for eternity, from everlasting to everlasting. But then on this side, we have time. And God, time doesn't last. Time is so short. It goes by so quickly. No matter what we think, no matter how hard we try to hold on to time, it just slips through our hands like smoke, like vapor. And God, there's no way I can hold on to my life. And so, God, we see these two things. You who last and time who doesn't. And this is the thing that Moses is trying to get across to us today is if God is what lasts and time doesn't, we shouldn't focus so much on things of this earth, on things of this time, because it goes by so quickly. Somebody said that there are 7 ages of men. It says the first age of a man is spills, then drills, then thrills, then bills, then ills, then pills, and then wills. Right? It goes by so fast. Life just doesn't last. You see, our life is flowing so fast, like a flood, the Bible describes it. And here's the challenge. Even though we know it goes so fast, some of us are wasting vital time that we will never get back. And we just think, oh, I'll always have tomorrow. I'll get serious about my Bible study one day. Oh, I'll witness to my neighbor sometime. And we just let this life slip by. This passage is trying to say, wake up. If you've been asleep at the wheel, wake up. If you've just been on cruise control, wake up. If you've just been floating through life, can I challenge you? Today's the day to wake up. Today's the day to realize you don't have much more time. You don't get to live forever. Your 20s, 30s, 40s, 50s, whatever stage of life you're in, it's going to be gone before you know it. And I tell you, just from my limited, tiny life, I'm seeing it pick up speed. And I get told by people older than me, it just gets worse. You know, right when I was a kid, an hour felt like a day. And when we had to wait for Christmas and it was like 3 days later, it felt like a year. But now it seems like Christmas comes every other week. And people say, oh, it gets worse. It gets worse? Are you kidding me? If it gets worse, can I tell you, we got to be serious about this. We got to realize that our life is just flowing by. And it's not just flowing by, it's literally picking up speed. It's literally going by us so quickly. Do we have a moment to waste? Do we have a moment where we're going to say, it doesn't matter? This moment of my life doesn't matter. Because we will never get these days again. So this begs the question, if life is speeding by, what's the best way to live? What's the best way to live? I mean, if I only have this much, How can I make that much really count? And this is what verse 12 gets to us. It teaches us that living wisely, this is our third truth, living wisely is living well. In verse number 12, he says this, so teach us to number our days, that we may apply our hearts unto wisdom. You see, Moses begins with the word so. And that word so is saying because God is eternal, and because time goes quickly, because of those two things, this next thing. Because God's eternal, because time goes so fast, so teach us. This next phrase, teach us, this shows us that this isn't natural. We naturally just drift through life. We naturally just let life happen to us. And so Moses says, God, I need you to teach me. Can I tell you, I can't teach you this. You can leave here today and have gotten nothing out of this if you're just relying on me. What needs to happen is for us in our hearts to say, God, I feel like, I don't know why, but I just feel like I don't really care. I feel like I can just keep drifting. But God, I need you to teach me. God, I need you to open my eyes. God, I need you to show me that this life doesn't last. God, I don't see it. God, for some reason, as a natural human, I just kind of drift through life. I just kind of float through life, thinking it's always going to be there. But God, I need you to open my eyes so that I can really see that my life doesn't last forever. God, I really need you to open my eyes to help me understand and to comprehend that this life is short. Because God, in my own finite mind, I just keep seeing that I have tomorrow. I keep assuming that I have next year. God, in my own mind, I think that I'm going to live till 50, 60, 70, 80, 90. God, in my own natural thinking, I just think that it's going to keep going. But God, I need you. I need you to open my eyes and show me life doesn't last forever. And this is what he says. So God, so because you last forever and time doesn't, teach us to number our days. God, I need you to show me how to number my days. You see, numbering our days is a special word, and it means not just to count, but it means to count and then set apart for a specific purpose. He's asking God to teach him to budget his life. I hope most of us in this room, we use a budget for our money, right? At the beginning of the month or whatever, we get our money in, we see how much we have, and then we set these things apart for a certain purpose. Maybe it's your housing, maybe it's your gas, but you set it apart at the beginning of the month. And this is what Moses is saying. God, I need you to teach me to number my days. God, I need you to show me how much I have so that I can use each moment to the best of my ability. I bet if you got a little buzz on your phone and you just saw on there that somebody had credited to your account at Rogue Federal or wherever you're at $1 billion. Hallelujah. Jehovah Jireh, right? But can I tell you something? You probably wouldn't have to budget very much. I don't think you would. You could probably go to any store you want tomorrow and buy what you want. And not have to, oh my goodness, do I have enough? It's like, oh, I'll take it all, please. Right? You could go to the car dealership and you could walk around and say, which one's the most expensive here? Yes, I'll take all of them, right? You can do what you want because you don't have to worry because you have billions of dollars. But if I were to say you have $1,000 for the rest of your life and you can never receive another penny, you can never get another dollar, can I tell you what all of us would be doing? We'd be having our budgets out and we would want to make every cent count. I mean, I only have maybe $1 for today. And so I need to make sure that I get the cheapest this, and I spend this on what's most nourishing, and I make sure that I only spend any money on what's most important. Can I tell you, some of us, we're spending our life like we have billions of dollars. We don't think about it. I got all this time. I can waste this time. I can waste my 30s. I can waste my 40s, my 50s. I can waste this time like we have billions of dollars. But what this phrase is trying to say is, God, show me that I don't have billions of dollars. Show me that I only have 1,000. Let me see it. Let me realize that it's only a little so that I can use every single moment to the biggest, to the most powerful potential possible. If you had $1,000 left for the rest of your life, I hope you would budget it. And friends, we don't have forever. So what are you going to do with these moments? Are you going to budget them wisely? I pray we do. You see, the last few verses show us that a life wisely spent is both full of joy and meaning. As we come to the end, he says, Lord, at verse 17, let the beauty of the Lord our God be upon us. And look at this, establish thou the work of our hands upon us. Yea, the work of our hands, establish thou it. Moses is there and he's saying, man, God, you last forever. Time does not. So God, I beg of you, if I live my life according to wisdom, God, if I budget my life wisely, may you establish the work of my hands. Basically what he's saying is, God, we're wandering around in the wilderness and God, nobody's going to remember us. God, nothing we do is going to matter. All we're doing is walking from point A to point B to point C. But God, if I could take just the little life that I have and I can realize the little bit of time that I have, and if I can use every moment wisely, God, if I can apply my heart unto wisdom. God, I pray that you would look down on the wisdom of what I've done with my life, and I pray that you would establish it. God, I pray you would make it count. God, I pray you would make it matter. I pray that the little bit that I'm allowed to do in this life, for the little bit of time that I have, that you would take that time and you would make it count. God, make what I do count. I hope that's our prayers. That we don't just float through life and nothing really happens. We don't help anybody. We don't make an impact. I pray we say, God, let me live this little life that I have in such a way, Lord, that it makes an impact and that you are able to use the wise life that I lived and establish it. Make it count. And I love that God did make his life count. We still read the 5 books that he wrote. I like to think this was written before that. And he's wandering in the wilderness discouraged, thinking, well, this is a waste. Man, God called me to go lead these people into the promised land, and now I got to wait 40 years. Maybe this is even after he's struck the rock a second time and he knows he's not getting in. And he thinks, man, what have I just spent the last 40 years of my life doing? Nothing. Everything I've done is going to be forgotten. But then he says, God, teach me to number my days, so that I can apply my hearts to wisdom. And then, God, would you establish my work? And God says, okay, I have a work for you. How about you write Genesis? How about you write Exodus? I'm not done. How about you write Leviticus and Deuteronomy and Numbers? How about you write these books? And for thousands of years, his work has been established. Because he didn't just kick up his heels and say, you know what, I'm just wandering around with these crybabies. I'm just going to walk around, bide my time, and I can't wait till I get to be with God. Finally escape this. He said, no, God, teach me to number my days so I can use every moment to the greatest possible potential. And now not only do we read his psalm, but we read 5 amazing books of the Bible that God used him to pen because he decided, I'm not just going to float through life. God, I'm going to do something. I'm going to use every moment as wisely as I can. Will that be us today? Your life's not done yet. You're still here. You still have a little bit of time. What could God do with us if we used every moment we have wisely? I like to read one little poem that really fits for my life stage, but I bet all of us will be able to draw the application out. It's about having our priorities wrong. It's easy when we don't see how short our life is to get our priorities out of whack and to live for things that don't matter. And this poem is called No Time to Play. No Time to Play. Let's see if I can make it through without even crying. Let's see. It says this. My precious boy with golden hair came up one day beside my chair and fell upon his bended knee and said, oh, mommy, please play with me. I said, not now, go on and play. I've got so much to do today. He smiled through, tears in his eyes so blue, when I said, we'll play when I get through. But the chores lasted all through the day. And I never did find time to play. When supper was over and dishes done, I was much too tired for my little son. I tucked him in and kissed his cheek and watched my angel fall asleep. As I tossed and turned upon my bed, those words kept ringing in my head. Not now, son, go on and play. I've got so much to do today. I fell asleep, and in a minute's span, my little boy is a full-grown man. No toys are there to clutter the floor. No dirty fingerprints on the door. No snacks to fix, no tears to dry. The rooms just echo my lonely sigh. And now I've got the time to play, but my precious boy has gone away. I awoke myself with a pitiful scream and realized it was just a dream. For across the room in his little bed lay my curly-haired boy with the sleepy head. My work will wait till another day. For now, I must find some time to play. You see, in that little story, we see priorities matter when we realize how short time is. And I don't know what your little boy is that you've been neglecting. Maybe it is your Bible study. Maybe it's some neighbor that God's been burdening your heart to witness. And you keep saying, not now, I've got to do this. Or not now, I've got to do this. Not now, I've got to do this. Can I tell you, when those not nows are stringed together, you'll look back and say, I missed it. I missed it. I don't know what God's plan is for your next 10 years. But I do know this. He can make it count. He can make it matter. But we got to stop wasting time. We got to say, God, will you teach me? Will you teach me to number my days so that I can apply my heart unto wisdom? Everyone's head bowed, everyone's eyes closed, no one looking around.